Good morning, students. It is a pleasure to be with you once again. The topic of discussion today is understanding good governance. Governance as a concept in this domain of public administration in IGNOU's courses, we have used it in variety of courses. For that matter, at the undergraduate level, we have it at BPAC 101, BPAC 131, and then at master's level, we have it in MPA 011, MPA 013, MPA 016. In fact, it is a very interesting area of study. When we talk of governance, we find it that the moment and the place that the phenomenon of human government developed is lost in times. So it dates back to the history. Let us try to have a look at it. It was around 5000 BC when the first city-states appeared. And then by the time it was from 3000 to 2000 BC, some of these had developed to larger governed areas. For that matter, Sumer civilization, which got into being somewhere around 4500 BC, was founded in Mesopotamia region, and it is said to be one of the first city-states, and also they are known to be the first civilizations which had existed. In the similar manner, ancient Egypt, which was there in 3100 BC, the civilization which had monarchy and which was assisted by bureaucracy. Indus Valley civilization, some 5500 BC, which was there around the river Indus, highly developed city life with underground drainage system. Yellow River civilization, which was there in China, 1045 BC to 2500 BC. Now, what does these old civilizations tell us? Old civilizations tell us that, we have evolved over the period of time. Why I am referring on to these aspects is because of the fact that when we are talking of good governance, then where from good governance did get into being? So from that perspective, it is good or it is desirable to have a little more understanding of this evolution of the governance. We find number of the theories which are there, like we start with the evolutionary theory, wherein there is reference on to the clan-based structures, hunter-gatherer societies, followed by the agriculture societies. We have the force theory, which says that state was there into being because of the dictatorial regimes or because of the dictatorship. We have the divine theory, which says that it had come into being because there was a divine or a descendant or representative of the god which was ruling the state. And then we find that there was a social contract theory, which speaks of that the human beings surrendered their sovereignty to the sovereignty of the state for the purpose of performance of the things. Where do we get into consideration this concept of governance? Governance is derived ultimately from the Greek verb kuberein, which means government or governance, primarily to steer. So the moment we say that it is primarily to steer, it takes us back to the ancient periods whereby we had found it, and the data is there, or the traces are there in the history which speak of it, that there had been certain structures which are put into consideration for the purpose of performance of the things. In the present day scenario, we find it, or the modern society as we developed over the years, its use is in English as a specific activity of ruling a country, and it can be traced to early modern England. Therefrom, we find that it appeared more prominently on the surface in the early 1990s. Now, here we are talking about the good governance which got into being or appeared on the surface in early 1990s, when the economists and the political scientists reminted or recoined it, and institutions like United Nations, International Monetary Fund and the World Bank laid much emphasis upon that. Now here one needs to look a little deeper into it, that where from do we find that it got really into existence? Is it not because we find that even our holy books, they have the reference so far as the governance is concerned? Let us say that is Bhagavad Gita. It is said that it dates back from 400 BC somewhere to 200 BC, when this Muni Vyas, he wrote about this Gita. Now, why this Gita was written? If you look into it, it tells that the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient Indian text, has become an important work of Hindu tradition in terms of both literature and philosophy. The name Bhagavad Gita means the song of the Lord. It is composed as a poem and it contains many key topics related to the Indian intellectual and spiritual traditions. And what emanates out of it? See, it's from the purpose of administration or for the purpose of governance, it brings to light distinction between effectiveness and efficiency. Now, we keep on making use of the words at times without attempting to know or to get into being that what does it really mean. When we talk of efficiency and effectiveness, then is there any difference between effectiveness? Is there any difference between efficiency, or is there any difference between effectiveness and efficacy? Effectiveness is doing the right things and efficiency is doing right things. When we talk of efficacy, we say that, well, it is for the purpose of measuring the performance vis-a-vis the ideal or the controlled situation, and effectiveness is said to be measurement of the performance vis-a-vis the real life like situations. We can derive the following lessons on government or governance from Gita, like dharma, which is righteousness, which speaks of accountability of self, family, organization and society for order and progress. Then similarly, loka sangraha, which means transparency of work for public benefits and societal welfare. The system should be geared towards larger social interest. By the way, why did individuals surrender their sovereignty to the sovereignty of the state? The purpose was that the life and property of the individuals shall be taken care of by the state, and the state is being put into being for the and its purpose is its activities are being undertaken by the government. So from that matter, what is required is the societal welfare, and when we talk of the social interest or the societal welfare, there is a need for the governance and there is a need for the government. Then again, it is kausalam, that is optimization and sustainability. Please refer on to it. Gita, which is stated to have been written somewhere 400 BC to 200 BC, is talking of sustainability. Now, these days we are talking of sustainable development goals. So, well, it brings forth number of the points which need to be understood by us being the students of administration or political science or governance, or even from the point of view of the corporate sector where the governance is taken shape of. Then vividita, that is constant creativity and innovation in control of resources for social welfare. Are we not laying much emphasis upon creativity, and we say that, well, we should be creative for looking upon the thing. We should be innovative. We should try to have such kind of the tools and techniques whereby we are able to achieve the optimal without spending much of the resources thereupon, or we have to make a proper resource management. Yes, it is required, which was referred on to in Vividita or in Gita way back centuries ago. Then it is Jigyasa, that is continuous learning to improve or continuous improvement. Well, the other way to look at Gita is that, well, this Gita, if we take it as an acronym, it is said to be that it is God's instructions to Arjuna, whereby it is being told that how best we can perform, or the individual who is a human being should perform his or her task, so that there is the welfare of all and his or her own interest is also taken into consideration. We will dwell upon it little later. In the similar manner, let us look at Bible. Now, when we talk of Bible, which otherwise is considered to be even oldest than Gita, because when we look into this Old Testament, we find it that it was written much earlier, but the New Testament got into being a little later. That is why I had given preference on to Gita or precedence to Gita than this Bible. The Bible also speaks of strong security. For what? Is it for the security of the boundaries? No, it is primarily leading on to the individuals or the human beings which are over there, or for the system to be performed, to be taken care of in a proper manner. Then it is adopting an astute or a sound foreign policy. Why foreign policy? Because that is where each nation or each state shall be interacting with the other nations. See, when Plato talked about city-state in his Republic, that is the ideal city-state, which said that, well, it will have the population of 5040. And when we find it again simultaneously that now that particular city-state which had a population of 5040, these days we talk of that, well, there is even the whole village, the whole globe is a village. Because anything which takes place at one point of place around the globe, we find that its effect is there in a much more manner onto the other components or the other integral parts or portions of the globe. So from that matter, it is required, Bible focuses on the foreign policy to be on the sound footing so that each one is able to have one's own share and there is a proper interaction for the welfare or benefit of the nations as a whole. Then it talks about looking after people's welfare. It talks about observing the rule of law. It is also about style. The way the policies are formulated and explained to the people is also very important, which is mentioned in a similar manner in the Bible. And then how public perceives its leaders based on what they see them do or say. Likewise, the Holy Quran. Now, the moment we talk of Quran, we find it that, well, it was probably, as the history stands, testimony to the fact that it was concluded in 632. And it is being believed that Quran was orally revealed by God to the final prophet Muhammad through the archangel Jibril. Incrementally over a period of some 23 years, beginning on 22nd December 609, when Muhammad was 40, and it concluded in 632, the year of his death. What does Quran talk about? Let us have a look at it so far as the good governance, which we find has come on to us as a subject of study or an area of study as late as 1991. Quran talks of and describes good governance as the law of justice, a just and principled order and compliance of rights and responsibilities in a society. It unequivocally refers to as-shura, that is rule of law. This is an Arabic word, as-shura, rule of law. Are we not talking of rule of law so far as the modern days or the contemporary governance is concerned? Yes, in a big way. It talks of zimmadari, that is accountability. Of course, it talks of accountability to God. But in the present day circumstances, we are correlating it so far as the good governance is concerned to accountability of the government to the system of which the government does belong to. It talks of shafafiyat, that is transparency. Whole lot of focus is being laid on the good governance in transparency, that, well, there should be transparency, that the people should not try to hide anything over there. And then it talks of insaf, that is justice. It talks of haq, which is equity. And it talks of al-amar bil maroof wa nahi an al-munkar, which means enjoining what is good and discouraging what is evil. Enjoining what is good and discouraging what is evil. Now just have a look at the principles or the prescriptions of Holy Quran. It probably brings that much more closer to what we have started talking of good governance, which was coined by these institutions, may it be World Bank, may it be IMF, may it be United Nations and so on. But we do find that, well, it is already there in our scriptures. Could it be Gita? Could it be Holy Quran? Could it be Bible, as we have referred on to? Similarly, it is Guru Granth Sahib. When we talk of Guru Granth Sahib, history speaks of it that it was in 1704 at Damdama Sahib, during a one-year respite from the heavy fighting with Aurangzeb, then the Mughal Emperor, Guru Gobind Singh and Bhai Mani Singh added the religious compositions of Guru Tegh Bahadur to Adi Granth to create the final edition which is called the Guru Granth Sahib. It is believed to be the word of God and is therefore infallible. It was first authored by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, fifth Guru of the Sikhs, known as Adi Granth. And later, during the 10th century, by the 10th Guru of Sikhs, that is Guru Gobind Singh Ji, added the Banis of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, and it made it Granth Sahib and later named it the Eternal Guru of the Sikhs in 1708. Now, what emanates out of it? It says governance, we find governance is a process. Thus, it is the management. Guru Granth Sahib has wealth of management principles. By adopting these, one can govern in an optimal manner. These are Sacha Achar, which is truthful living. Should it be or not? Then it is nako beri nahi begana, which means none foe, none stranger. Everybody is equal, everybody is my friend, everybody is my relation. We have to live in a given manner whereby we are able to work for each other. Why we should do it? Why we do talk of nako beri nahi begana? Because Aristotle said it long back that man is a social animal. Further added on to it, man is a social animal by nature and necessity. So when this is the aspect, if man is a social animal means that we need the other person. It is not only the children need the parents, parents also need the children. Brother needs the sister, sister needs the brother, and so on and so forth. I mean, likewise, of course, husband needs wife, wife needs husband, so it keeps on going. So from that angle, none is the foe, none is the stranger. Look at later, khima ate nimarta, that is forgiveness and humility. Well, how good it sounds to be. Even if you look at it, it gives so much of solace, it gives so much of consolation when we talk of these particular aspects, which are mentioned in our scriptures. Then Sarbaddha Pala, goodness of all. Nishkam Seva, that is selfless service. Chardi Kala, which is high spirits. Raj Karega Khalsa, Aki Rahe Na Koi. That means that those Khalsa means over here the pure will rule, and there would not be any person who is working or who is to be taken up as a slave. So when these are the aspects, then these aim at ensuring what? Leadership, integrity, compassion, equity, tolerance, selflessness, motivation, trustworthiness, justice and fairness, co-sharing, environment protection and preservation, and human rights. So well, if these are the things which are mentioned over here, which has been given to us by these scriptures, which were written long back, and we owe our allegiance to these kind of the scriptures, then where did go something wrong? Let us try to have a look at it, that we had to come on to the third bullet on this slide, which says that the good governance appeared more prominently on the surface in early 1990s, when the economists and political scientists recoined or reminted it, and institutions like United Nations, IMF and the World Bank laid much emphasis upon that. Let us try to look at this particular aspect, that why did it happen? It happened for the simple reason, when we find taking clue from Aristotle that man is a social animal by nature and necessity, we find that the self-interest cloud our judgment and make us discard what? Ethics, values, humanity, right? Honesty, probity, whatever is fair. These are supposedly to be done away with, and we discard it for the purpose of pursuance of our self-interest. And under circumstances, people deceive without even realizing it. Number of examples are over there. Number of illustrations can be quoted to this particular extent, when we do such kind of the things and we deceive without even realizing it that we are deceiving. Why? Because we को पर्दा पड़ जाता है हमारी अकल के ऊपर. तो जब वो पर्दा पड़ जाता है तो हम समझ नहीं सकते कि ठीक क्या है और खराब क्या है. ये इसलिए भी होता है क्योंकि I will just narrate it over here. A wise gentleman who is an engineer by profession, he has been telling long back also that when पंजाबी ਵਿੱਚ बोल रहे थे कि अद्धी और पूरी दी गल है. अद्धी और पूरी ਦਾ मतलब every individual feels कि पूरी complete wisdom lies with me, और जेड़ा सामने वाला जो है उसका wisdom मेरे से आधा है. So my wisdom is far superior in comparison to the wisdom of the other. So when we have such kind of a scenario, we feel that my ego, it becomes inflated in a substantive way, because I don't consider that the other person is even half of the worth of what I am, and which is in its own self a misnomer. And when we correlate this particular scenario with whatever has been mentioned into the religious scriptures, we find it that, well, this is probably the reason that over the period of time, when there had been so many civilizations in the ancient period and so much development which has taken place in the modern period, in the medieval period, and now we find it that what had taken place in a big way, whether it is industrial development or scientific development or technological developments or development into the medicine or development into the engineering scenario and so on and so forth, that there are so many things which have come forth, but still we do not find that we are able to achieve what we were supposed to achieve. Probably that was the reason that there came a need in 1990s to remint or to recoin that what governance is. But otherwise, when we talk of the governance, we find it that governance is synonym to government, which is that to act or process of governing, that is what is government, and governance involves interaction between the formal institutions and those in the civil society. Now, when we say those in the civil society, तो civil society या बंदे को civilized होना या बंदे को बंदे की तरह behave करना, ये तो हमारे religious scriptures में बहुत पहले लिख दिया गया था. तो फिर अब हमें इसका डिस्टिंक्शन और डिफ्रेंसिएशन समझने की जरूरत क्यों पड़ी थी? वो समझने की जरूरत इसलिए पड़ी थी because we say and we know it for sure, being students of public administration, what Herbert Simon has talked of, that well, individual is rational, but the rationality is bounded. We have bounded rationality. The bounded rationality means that I think only to the extent it suits my interest. जब तक मेरा बच्चा कुछ कर रहा है वो ठीक है, जब दूसरा कोई करे तो वो गलत है, जो मैं करूं वो ठीक है, जो दूसरा करे वो गलत है. ये इसको ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए था. It doesn't suit, it doesn't behove. You know, there are some societal norms, there is something known as humanism, there is something known as humanistic aspects and values. Now why does it apply to the other end? Why it doesn't apply to me? Because I never think about that. So there is bounded rationality. And similarly, Bazerman has talked about it, is that it is not only bounded rationality, but there is bounded ethicality also. It is as a result of bounded ethicality that our ethics are also carrying on or being carried away to the extent it suits my end. जहाँ तक मेरे एंड को वो सर्व करता है तो वो एथिकल है, नहीं भी है तो कोई बात नहीं, तो थोड़ा सा क्या चलता है, कोई देख थोड़ी रहा. देख सभी कोई और देखे ना देखे, पर मैं खुद देख रहा हूं कि मैं क्या कर रहा हूं. बट when my self-interest becomes so much predominating or it preponders over me, then I tend to give any kind of the weightage to this kind of ethicality or this kind of rationality. So that is where there was a need which got into being in this 1990s when this concept got into being. Governance is wider in scope than government, because here we find that it is having interaction. Governance encompasses interaction with the civil society, with the market forces, for the purpose of working together with each other towards achievement of the goals and objectives which we have fixed forth. Who fixes it forth? And all this what we have talked of, bounded ethicality and bounded rationality, are we referring on to it that it gets applicable only to the individual? No. और वो जो अद्धी पूरी वाली गल है, is it applicable only to the individual? No. It is applicable to the governments also. It is applicable to the top level bureaucracy also. It is applicable to judiciary. It is applicable to all. Wherein we get it to be that everybody tries to feel that, well, based upon the authority or the power which is vested in the individual, that individual is superior than the others, which is a wrong notion. We find in the governance that it means the process of decision making and also the execution of the decisions made. Howsoever good the making up of the decision is, unless and until there is proper execution of the decision, we don't find that that decision would be worth its while. Good governance aims at bringing to light the effectiveness in conduct of public affairs and management of public resources in an optimum manner or in an optimum way. Now, who is to decide it? It is to be decided or it is to be measured again vis-a-vis the outcome which is there. That is where we talk of, and I explained in my earlier discussion also with you, that there is a difference between output and outcome. So it has to be seen and it will be seen vis-a-vis the outcome is there. In good governance, the focus is on non-governmental and informal organizations because much emphasis is laid upon it. It attempts at making governmental systems more accountable and transparent, makes for crafting social institutions as a matter of substantive public concerns. In the present globalization scenario, we are witnessing an increasing concern towards the issue of governance. Again, something which is very wonderful and which can be correlated with the day-to-day kind of the situation which is going on. The nations which were far more developed in comparison to the others, which were put across in the category of underdeveloping or developing or least developed or something like that, we find that some which were put in the category of in the later category are probably doing better than what was being done up in the former category, or what is being done by the former category of the governments. Why does it so happen? How are people of the country in India are responding on to the governance or the rules which are being framed forth so far as the present crisis of coronavirus in India is concerned? Well, we find that there is much leeway which is being given to the government, and people are abiding by those rules and regulations. If the government releases or eases out certain things, people attempt to come out of it for the purpose of getting the benefit thereupon. Why? This speaks of it that we're right in the social contract when we had surrendered our sovereignty to the sovereignty of the state by thinking thereupon that the government will take care or the state will take care of my life and property. That is the faith which we do have, and we adhere unto that particular faith for the achievement of the goals which are being fixed forth ourselves. So it is not only vis-a-vis the individual, it is also vis-a-vis the governments and vis-a-vis the nations or the states which are before us. So we find it that, well, it is not something which has come into being immediately, but it is something which has a long history to its credit. Determinants of good governance say that, well, it has a democratic polity where people elect the government, and when people elect the government, well, they do give credence on to what kind of the policies or what kind of the framework of the system we shall be having, which will be the points which shall be laid focus upon, and how our interests would be covered, taken care of, and how we will be able to get maximum avenue so far as the development and growth is concerned. Then there are flexible models of governance, and we have seen it. Take into consideration India. Take the illustration of India. From India, after the constitution was formulated and constitution was put into being on 26th of January 1950, we find that number of amendments have been made. Why these amendments are being made? These amendments were made for the purpose of incrementally adding on to certain things which was the requirement of the nation as a whole. Why did we come out with 73rd, 74th amendment? The purpose of 73rd, 74th amendment was that we could have better participation, we could have better management or better administration of the affairs at the rural levels as well as at the urban levels, because you cannot have the control being exercised in an effective way so far as the government of India is concerned, and reaching it up to or making it reach up to the last point of contact, which is a village or which is an urban area. So from that end, there are the flexible models of the governance which is considered to be, or which has been referred to as another determinant of good governance. Then established legal framework based on rule of law. Now see, rule of law, as-shura, it is talked of in the Quran also, and we find it that, well, it is referred on to as a determinant of good governance, which has been emphasized in the 1990s when we are talking of World Bank report or we talk of IMF or United Nations. So, well, these things have also been drawn from there. So, well, if this can be drawn from our religious scriptures for the purpose of giving us a concept, then why can't we adhere on to those religious scriptures, and why we can't make it in a manner that we are not being clouded out by our self-interest to keep our and to shun our eyes so far as the fairness or just or probity or humanity or ethics or rationality is concerned. Then it is a competitive government injective competition into service delivery. Number of the agencies are coming out. Gone are the days when everything was being done by the government per se. Now we find that there are a number of the private players over there. There used to be in India only this All India Radio which was doing it, and when the television came into being in India, it was only the Doordarshan which was doing it. Now we find right from morn till night and the next day start, number of channels which are there, which are trying to probe into things and competing with the aspects as it is. In the similar manner, it used to be only the Life Insurance Corporation or the New India Insurance or the General Oriental Insurance Company. Now we find that there are a number of the companies which are there into existence. Similarly, so far as the civil aviation was concerned, in India there used to be Indian Airlines and there was Air India. Now we find that there are so many airlines which are there. Telephone was only the mainstay of the government. Now we find that there are private players which have got into being. Why? Why this competition is being injected? Competition is being injected so that the monopoly is not being thrusted upon, or the monopoly is not being encashed upon, and people at large are not put to pressure, are not being exploited by those who are managing it. Then transparent administrative service system, we find it is referred in Gita, referred to in Quran, referred to in Bible, referred to in Guru Granth Sahib, responsive to the needs of the citizens and changes in situations. Well, why not? If we talk of responsive administration, we can go back to 1944 when Donald J. Kingsley wrote about responsive administration. When we talk of responsive administration in India, we can look into 1980s when Rajiv Gandhi as Prime Minister laid much emphasis upon responsive administration. So, which makes that the responsiveness is where? Responsive to the needs of the citizen. Who is to be responsive? Every person who has authority or who has been given power, who has been made responsible for that particular thing. The higher you go up, the more the responsibilities. The more the responsibilities, the more the need for responsiveness, because you who are responsible, who are having the authority, who have been vested with authority and who have the power, they are in position to take the measures which will be satisfying the needs of the citizenry or needs of the people, and the situations which are being faced, the changes have to be brought forth in those situations. Efficiency with result orientation, efficiency was talked about, effectiveness was talked about. We have seen a short while ago while referring on to Gita, it is talked about in that also. It is mentioned in indirect manner in Quran, indirect manner in Bible, indirect manner in Guru Granth Sahib. Organizational pluralism, that is state, market and civil society organizations for governance. A good thing which is being talked about, that well, state definitely is there, which we find that well, there are the characteristics of state where we include government is one of the characteristics, territory is another characteristic, population is another characteristic, and the fourth one is sovereignty. You are aware of it being students of public administration and political science. Here we find that it is not only role but of the state, but also that of the market. Market means what? Market means where you talk of in the fourth bullet, we referred on to competitive government injecting competition into service delivery. Why? So that the government, which is a characteristic of the state, is not able to overpower and is not able to perform the things in a way which torpedoes or jeopardizes the spirit which is there behind the functioning of the government, whereby the governance is there. So, it has to be the equal kind of the leeway has to be attached onto the market as well as to the civil society. Why civil society? Because you are doing everything for the welfare, benefit of whom? Of people, of citizens, of inhabitants, of populace. So, if that is the consideration, that is the point of focal concern, you find that there is a civil societal organizations which have got into being, non-governmental organizations which have got into being. Their purpose is not to vie, they don't vie for power. They don't work for the purpose of acquiring seats of power or being ministers. No, for that there is a political party. If one wishes to go that way, then the route is entirely different. But these are the people, the CBO community-based organization or civil society organizations are the ones, those who perform shoulder to shoulder, they work with the government for carrying out the activities which are required to be done for the benefit of all. We have seen it in the recent past also in India, not only in India, all across the globe it has been seen through, where the civil societal organization and even the business organizations, they are working hand in gloves with the government for the purpose of meeting with the challenges which have come forth in the form of this coronavirus disease 2019. Decentralization, which is again a mainstay. You cannot centralize it. If you will centralize it, you will find that well, there will be suffocation and people will not free to act upon. People's participation, quality of service and performance assessment, probity in public life, that is honesty and decency which needs to be seen in public life. Building social capacity, small government in terms of size, performance partnership and so on and so forth, ethical approach to human concern. All these are the determinants. One can have a lecture on each one of the bullets which is mentioned over there. One is sorry about it because the time doesn't permit it to have it. Question is that why all these are not being able to manage, not being able to put into being? Because of again what we have talked of, bounded ethicality, bounded rationality, and self-interest becoming over predominant. Well, then of course there are key priorities of governance, but before come on to that, let us look into it. If there is a good governance, then there is a concept of bad governance also. And the concept of good governance can be appreciated more clearly if we get in terms with this concept of bad governance. Again, if good governance has been coined by World Bank, then bad governance also is based on the reports of the World Bank. It is the unfavorable relationship between the rulers and the ruled as a consequence of decision making. All of us, we know it, that it is the elite which rules. And elite is the one which is a small group. So, a small group rules over the innumerable rule. A small rulers, they rule over innumerable rule. It is unfavorable relationship between the rulers and those who are being ruled as a consequence of decision making. When so much of concentration of power is there, when everything is being done in a whimsical manner, when transparency is being put at a back seat, and when no kind of emphasis is being laid upon innovations and creativity and responsiveness, we find that these things crop up. It encompasses a variety of situations from corruption, deceit, and to framing of unfair policy. Major causes of bad governance are lack of voice and weak accountability. If we don't care for the citizenry, we don't give any cognizance to the citizens' claims and to the citizens' needs and desires. Because we are all aware of it, that why it all happens. Corruption is another point. Why it all happens? It all happens is because the line between, everybody needs something, right? Please try to understand it. But the line between need and greed is very thin. The line between need and greed is very thin. What is the need? Need is roti kapda makan. That is the need, na? हर एक व्यक्ति को जीवित रहने के लिए क्या चाहिए? रोटी कपड़ा मकान. But then over the way we keep on looking at things, we find that our needs also keep on increasing. There is nothing wrong in having the increase in the need, but then one should try to find it, that how much one can afford it, and afford it again in the boundary of some kind of ethics or some kind of rationality or some kind of justness which is associated with that. In the morning, when today there is the relaxation which is given in the lockdown, I was seeing it on TV channel. 2-kilometer long line for before this wine shops and whiskey shops. Why? People want to have. It is their need. Oh, well, let us look into it. Let them have it. That is not a problem. Purpose is not that one is against it. Purpose is that, well, under these kind of circumstances, is it a need or not? That is again to be seen. And of course, as it is that, well, everybody has one's own set of perceptions and one looks at the things the way it suits the individual. Bad governance can again be improved through transparency, introducing new institutions and laws, target vulnerable services and change services at grassroots. By what? On the part of the government, by repealing those laws which facilitate bribery. Such kind of the laws should be done away with. So that means that if you want to have good governance, you have to do away with this kind of the fallacy of the bad governance, whereby there are laws which are facilitating bribery. It should be done away with. Then use of computer to reduce contact with public officials. It is said that, well, the more one comes in touch with the public officials, the more there is scope for corrupt practices to take place. And mind you, you cannot clap with the hand. Even if you try your best, you cannot clap with the hand. You need to do like this if you want to clap. So, well, why do we blame only the public officials when we talk of corruption? What about those who corrupt them? Does anybody come to my place for taking money? Why can't we wait it that, well, we will not do it? So that is all what needs to go through. जब हमारी मजबूरी होती, जब हमारे ऊपर कोई मुसीबत पड़ती, तो हम सारा कुछ भूल जाते हैं. we had been talking too much about this shortage of petrol and kind of a thing, or pollution and so on. So well, सारा कुछ बंद हो गया, pollution भी खत्म हो गई, petrol की भी shortage का पता नहीं चल रहा, etc. etc. So it varies from situation to situation. Such kind of the laws or the acts whereby we are having more of the contact with the public officials, and we say that the corruption gets into being. So well, it is not only the officials they are to be blamed, probably we also are to be blamed because we tend to corrupt them. And then where from officials? ऊपर से थोड़ी आए हैं, they are not descendants of God. अरे हम ही में से तो हैं, हमारे परिवारों में से है, हमारे ही भाई बंधु हैं. So इसलिए one has to look at it in totality. Monitor the delivery of services electronically so that one is able to do it. Lot many things are improving. I remember there used to be fairly long lines for the purpose of paying the telephone bill or the electricity bill. Where are those lines? Everything is being done online. At the click of the mouse, you are able to do it, sitting whether you are present in that city even or country, or from outside country also, on the basis of your internet facility, you are able to do it. So these are the benefits which have come our way. Giving citizens access to public records about themselves. Give them the access, let them have a look at it, let them satisfy themselves and do away with all these things which we have attempted to look at it. So when these are the things, and now understanding this bad governance, let us now look at the key priorities of good governance. That is decentralization of power and citizens' empowerment. First determinant, or one of the major determinants of good governance, is democratic polity, decentralization. Again, here the key priorities of good governance is decentralization of power and citizens' empowerment. India has a long history so far as the center-state relationship is concerned. Effective people's participation through state and non-state mechanisms. Develop individuals. Give them responsibility. You will find that they may not be able to come up to your expectations to begin with, but give them little long rope. They will come on terms, because it is ultimately going to be in their interest. Nobody can control. 2 पाँव वाले को कोई बांध के नहीं रख सकता, 4 पाँव वाले को आप बांध सकते हो, 2 पाँव वाले को बांधना बहुत मुश्किल है, बिकॉज 2 पाँव वाले में सोचने की शक्ति है और वो सोचता उस प्रकार से है जो उसको सूट करता है, और वो जो क्या उसको सूट करता है वो फिर अद्धी और पूरी अली गल आ जाती कि एक अकल तो सारे तो ज़्यादा मेरे को ने, दूजा सामने वाले को अकल अद्धी है. सो फ्रॉम दैट एंगल व्हेन वी लुक एट इट, लेट अस ट्राई. The key priority of good governance is to make such kind of the mechanisms whereby we are able to really empower the citizens. Greater synergy and consolidation among various agencies and programs of the government. Should not be that the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing, but both the left and the right hand should work in sync with each other for the purpose of achievement of the goals and the targets which have been fixed forth for the purpose of overall benefits of the society, polity and economy. Civil services reform. India came into being with ARC, Administrative Reform Commission, in the 1960s. Then again there came up the ARC, second ARC came into being. Over the period of time, so much of money and efforts are being spent upon resources being used for orientation, reorientation, training, retraining, sensitization of the civil services, and all other people, those who are involved therein, even sensitization of the NGOs and the CBOs or the other related organs of the government. Purpose is again for orienting ourselves towards the reforms which can serve the purpose. Yes, of course, need is that of transparency. I must be able to convince what is happening and why it is happening. What is the need for that? Right to information is there, people can ask for it. Lot many changes have been brought forth through this particular right to information move also. Well, it is again one of the good key priorities of good governance. Then rationalization of government schemes and mode of financial assistance to states so that nobody feels deprived of, there is no kind of, there is no lack of trust between the state government and the union government, or the center-state relations are in a proper manner. Improved access to formal justice system to enforce rights, because too much of expectations people have of the judiciary, and people look at it that, well, things will take care in a just manner. People crave for just so far as the judiciary is concerned. then reforms and strengthening of land administration, harnessing the power and technology for governance. These are the key priorities of good governance. Now, in a nutshell, when we look at it or attempting to conclude it, one finds that it goes back right from the days when the civilization had started. In a proper manner, in not so proper manner, in not that elaborate manner as it is now in the present day scenario, but maybe at the level of the human organization, at the level of the human governance, or at the level of the city-states and the governance of the city-states. And then over the period of time, when we find it that there was underground drainage system even during the Indus Valley civilization, when we say that the Sumerians had a better kind of the functioning to perform way back, that is 4500 BC, when we find that Yellow River civilization gave it something, ancient valleys, Egypt civilization contributed onto it. So it has a long history, and we have lot many things to learn therefrom. Of course, why the need for emphasizing upon good governance came in 1919? It was again probably this ethicality had really come up in a manner of being bounded, as it was the rationality which was bounded. So there was a need which was felt to do away with the bad governance and to put into being good governance. Thank you very much.